My name is Adam Glickman. I run a small brand strategy and wellness design firm called Parallax. I live in Atlanta, Georgia, and I'm happy to introduce our first next virtual event, which is designed to bring hospitality designers, suppliers, operations leaders, and industry stakeholders together. This event is brought to us by our media partners, Hotel Business and Inspire Design, and our sponsor partner, Decalab, which is a full-scale bathroom and case goods company. All the proceeds from our event today are going to a really great group called Hospitality Cares, which is meant to help support hotel industry team members that are impacted during coronavirus. So far from this event specifically, we've raised about $3,000, and we're hoping to grow that closer to $5,000. If you have not had a chance to donate after, you'll get a follow-up, and we would love you to donate anything you can. Even $1 makes a difference. This event is called Grounded by Design. The whole idea of Grounded by Design was to become a platform or panel to bring together groups of people that care about and are interested in how hospitality design is going to transform to be wellness-led and sustainability-focused. The idea is for an organization that really helps designers, suppliers, brands, and owners think about how spaces will evolve over time to support guests, team members, their community, and really the planet, and help all those pieces thrive together. This event is a virtual one, obviously. Our intent is to ultimately launch live small retreats, and that'll happen starting in 2021. So before we jump right in, I'm going to introduce the panel. I want to remind you that our session is interactive. So on everybody's Zoom, you will see a Q&A. Please pop questions in. We've saved time at the end for Q&A, and I want to make sure I get everybody's thoughts. So feel free to put in as many questions as you have. We have 5 or 6 prefab questions we've developed with our panel that we're going to talk about, and we're really going to jump right into that now. So as a little bit of background, there's a lot I'm sure everybody has heard and observed, whether it's a hospitality brand launching new cleaning programs or technologies, groups looking at modifications for hospitality spaces, and modifying existing areas of buildings. There's a plethora of articles literally every day. I feel like it's inundating us around like different surveys that are out there and how organizations are trying to figure out where we're going to go and what's this recovery going to look like. Is it short term? Is it long term? When are people going to travel again? And when they do, what are they going to require? So I can't answer those, and frankly, none of us can. We can all just read and see what different folks are saying and what different experts' views are. But instead, what we really want to try to do today, and we think that one thing is very clear, is that because there is not that black or white answer, we can't predict what's going to happen. We can look at all the different scenarios and try to say, how can we best manage businesses and give the best advice we can to each other to try to help each other during this time? And that's what we want to try to do as a team and as a panel. And the things that we're going to talk about to say, what do customers and end-use travelers care about most for their personal health and well-being? And what are they going to expect to see come to life once there's more of a handle on what's happened with the virus? So with that, we brought together a really awesome panel who are going to give different points of view. Not 2 people are the same. We have a developer on our panel. We have an interior design leader, a trend watcher, somebody representing a hotel brand, someone representing a major technology wellness company, and each will bring a slightly different angle to this discussion. So with that, I'm going to just quickly introduce who they are and then ask them to tell you a little bit more about themselves. And for a little bit of fun, I'm going to ask everyone to kick off with a question. So first off, we've got Roger Bloss, who's the CEO of Alternative Hospitality. We've got Coletta Connor, who is a principal with Forrest Perkins. We've got Max Luffy, who runs insights and trends with trendwatching.com. We've got Daniel Poulin, who runs spa and fitness for North and Central America for Accor, and Jay Mueller, who is the vice president of hospitality for Technogym. And so with that, I'm going to pass it over to Roger and let him kick off with his background and bio. But I want everybody to answer this one simple question. What does everybody see as one simple design change that you expect to be part of our new normal? What we're going to begin to see regularly integrated into hotels and resorts for years to come as a result of this pandemic? So as you tell us about yourself, try to think about how you'd answer that question. So with that, off to Roger. We've got Roger. I think we may have technically lost Roger. So I'm going to jump right to number 2. So Coletta, you're up first, and hopefully we will have Roger back any second.
Hi, I'm Coletta. I've been in the hospitality design industry for 20 years. And prior to serving in the design industry, I served in the U.S. Air Force, While in the Air Force, I was a health promotion director. So the topic of well-being is very near and dear to my heart. And then one simple change I expect to be part of the new normal is self-cleaning and self-disinfection on surfaces. So I expect we will see dispensers throughout spaces in the hotel environment that we haven't really seen before.
Max, your way.
Right on. Well, first of all, I just want to thank you for inviting me on this panel. You know, I really think something you touched on, Adam, is this is a time to be very open-minded. This is a time to have discussions, to ask questions, and to collaborate. So I'm really excited to hear everyone's take on your questions today. Really fantastic panelists you've assembled. So I work at a company called Trend Watching, and essentially, before that, I was in the music industry, kind of started a record label in 2010, so I clearly can't predict the future. But I've been at Trend Watching for a decade, and really what we do is we help people make sense of change by looking at how change bumps up against human needs. And the next thing we do is we look for the points of tension that arise. Then we scan for the innovations with the help of our spotter network that are happening around the world in hospitality, in food and beverage, in retail. And we say, how are those innovations resolving that point of tension and changing what people expect in the coming months and years? So even with a change as big as this pandemic, right, that model still works. I mean, I think we can all agree there's quite a lot of tension. I certainly feel tense. But yeah, in terms of a simple design solution, perhaps the designers will disagree with me here that this is simple, but I think what's going to be really important is almost this sense of the airlock feeling of stepping into a safe and secure space. So whether designers convey that with, you know, temperature, with sound, with light, with smell, it's almost beyond the systems that actually keep a hotel or a resort clean and clear. I think around the perimeter, there needs to have that feeling of when you do step inside, you know, this is a safer version of, you know, this is safer and cleaner than what's actually outside these doors. So maybe not easy to solve, but I think that's a big kind of visual cue that people will want to feel as they enter your establishments.
Cool. Thank you, sir. Daniel, your way.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Thanks for inviting me, Adam, to join. Daniel Poulain, the Director of Spine Fitness for Accor. I am a kinesiologist and a nutritionist by trade. And prior to joining the hospitality industry, I was working in community health. And this is something that is very dear to me that I try to bring also in the programs that I create for Accor in terms of doing something that is good for our community, which is our guests. So one of the design idea that I think is going to be happening even more, although some hotels have been quite successful at doing those, has to do with technology. The idea of going straight from the door of the hotel to your room without having to stop anywhere is obviously interesting to consider following what is just happening today. And in the fitness sphere, I think that Jay will be touching on that a little bit later, but there's a lot of technology that comes out of a company like Technogym that is going to really impact how we are able to adapt to this situation in the years to come.
Thanks, Daniel.
You're welcome.
And Jay, I'm going to pass it your way.
Great. Thank you, Adam, and thank you, Daniel. My name is Jay Muller. I'm the Vice President of Sales for Hospitality and Residential for Technogym. Happy to have about nearly 20 years of experience in the fitness and wellness industry, serving about nearly 15 of those with Technogym. Technogym is a world-leading fitness equipment manufacturer of equipment, digital solutions, services for the health, sport, and fitness industry. We promote the wellness lifestyle. Wellness lifestyle is, you know, routine exercise, proper nutrition, and all a positive mental approach. Things that are super important today, incredibly relevant as we hear about, you know, sheltering in and quarantining in place. You know, from my side in hospitality, I've had the opportunity and pleasure to work with Daniel at Accor and, you know, forge global relationships with several of the large major brands in hospitality, owners and developers. I also sit on the board of iSpa, the International Spa Association, which is the voice of the spa community, which you know, basically serves health and wellness facilities in over 70 countries. So As far as something I'm super excited about in terms of the new norm, as a business and leisure traveler, I do expect to see a lot more of in-room wellness. Pre-COVID, that was on the rise. I would say about 30% of the active travelers did train in their room, mainly, and that was through TripAdvisor, mainly because of lack of time, privacy, but I think in the vein of safety and cleanliness now today, a couple new buzzwords, but people are still going to want the experience of being able to train and in the room.
Okay, well, let's jump into our panel, and hopefully we get Roger back any second. The first question that we wanted to ask to the group, and this is going to really go out to everybody, and it's about new development projects. For projects that are not yet complete, whether it's in the ideation stage or somewhere in development, what changes to future business plans and design do we expect to come to life now that are going to support the needs of guests in the future, now that we know about the pandemic, now that this has come and taken over our world and our lives? As a group, what do we think is going to change in new developments? And if you were giving advice or guidance to a developer working on a new project or a designer working on a new project, what would you tell them? So I'm going to open it up to the group, and maybe Coletta, if you want to take a first pass, or Max, you go after that. Let's see what everybody thinks.
Thanks. I'm really hopeful that we can focus on healthy resiliency of the built environment. This would include properly maintaining HVAC systems so that our air quality is healthy. We also know about studies being done right now by the CDC that are mapping airflow through spaces and really being able to prove the spread of the current virus to various different parts of spaces where COVID was originally diagnosed or uncovered. So I think it's interesting. We need to, as professionals, keep our eye on that ball so that we're making proper decisions and proper recommendations to our clients as we start working on the design of new spaces.
Thanks, Coletta. And anybody else want to jump in on that one? Daniel or Max, any thoughts there?
As the outsider, I'll defer to the those more involved in the development process.
Yeah, Daniel.
Hey, Adam, it's Jay. Oh.
Yeah, go for it, Jay.
Sure, good. Hey, I think, from our side, Technogym, a key component to our wellness solution is absolutely through our global design, our wellness design team that works with, as I mentioned, with Daniel at Accor and other leading brands to adhere to the standards. When it comes to the project pipeline, we work on things near term, things that are getting ready to open soon, all the way to things that are into 2022 and beyond. For those in the near term, we're not having any discussions about changing anything. These things are fully baked. Electrical's already been planned. Spatial planning's already been set. So not much there. One of the things that we're talking about with prospects and customers is asking for more space. And I say more space because I think there's a couple reasons. One, the trends are what the trends are, and high intensity interval training and functional training require a bit more space, and people don't want to be tripping over each other. Daniel and I have a funny story about traveling together in Las Vegas, where we were doing a Tabata workout, and basically in this day and age, we might be looking at each other like, who did you come in contact to? Who did you come in contact? And then, so it's just gonna, when you're doing this, a perfect stranger now training in an environment, you're gonna be a little bit leery. Secondly, is we're gonna have a whole new cluster of people that are fitness-minded travelers. I look out my window today and I see people walking, I see people riding bikes. Fitness doesn't necessarily mean, being the training group fitness, boutique fitness, or, training in CrossFit. It really is about moving. And I think that hotels are going to need to maybe add a little bit more space for some extra equipment, maybe the steady state cardio equipment, but also opening up that floor space so people aren't tripping over each other.
I agree with you, Jay. I think there will be a resurgence of optimizing how we think about spaces, particularly as I think about spas, waiting spaces, and kind of transition areas, and then into gyms, areas to enable people to have distance between themselves, even if they can be very close. I think we're hearing more and more customers just have fear of being on top of the person next to them, especially if they don't know them very well. I'm going to just keep going with some of our questions. I think we should have Roger back shortly, and then we'll let him introduce himself. The next question that we wanted to talk a little bit about is really around surfaces and materials. And I know that is something near and dear to Coletta, Coletta's day-to-day in planning spaces and buildings, but how will surfaces and materials in high traffic areas and guest rooms evolve, if at all? So on a personal level, years ago on one of the brands I worked on was even hotels with IHG. And as we developed that brand, we added space in every guest room for disinfecting wipes to wipe down in-room workout areas. That was way ahead of its time. In today's world, what's going to happen? Will designs be updated to allow guests to clean things themselves, whether that's in their hotel room, in an F&B area, in a gym, or in a spa? Will there be new materials that are emerging? Antimicrobial countertops, as an example. Are we going to see things like that come to the forefront? And will that take a stronger angle, or will that become a stronger need over, a certain type of look because of the functionality of something versus the look of something? So, Coletta, I'm going to pass it to you to kick off, but I'd love the group to weigh in on surfaces and materials.
Mm-hmm. Well, I actually think the answer is both. We know that antimicrobial surfaces exist today. They're used in healthcare environments regularly. The availability is there, and I think they'll become more of a go-to in hospitality, so that it's a point of assurance that hotels can give to their guests. Design limitations, your question about that, I don't really see a lot of design limitation in antimicrobial materials that we're seeing right now. I think just in the past 6 weeks, we've had a lot of hospitality vendors come forward with new product lines that they are carrying that have a wide array of design options, and they're a beautiful material. So I think that the likelihood of limitation is limited. Our hospitality vendors respond very quickly, and they do a great job with bringing to the market on-trend looks for us to choose from. And like I mentioned earlier, I do believe that one of the first touch points hotels can provide to guests is the option of self-disinfectant and self-sanitize options, should they choose. A huge part of what we're talking about here and moving forward is giving a sense of well-being, not just physical well-being, but mental well-being. And some of those things are the first line of defense that we can offer to guests walking in the hotel door to see that they have the ability to take care of themselves in any way that they choose.
Thanks, Coletta. Mm-hmm. Daniel, any thoughts on your side?
Yes, I apologize for being so dark. I'm depending on the weather in Toronto, because I was hoping that window would give me some light, and I feel like I'm going into the nighttime. So yes, I think it's a combination of. I was on a call a few days ago with other industry people from fitness, where it was discussed about the material that could be used in the future for building the equipment and different surfaces in fitness. So I think that there's an opportunity maybe there. I think it's also a combination of how do we adapt our operations in order to perform what has been mentioned a few times, this theater of cleanliness into our hotel. Something that we used to keep in the back of the house or in private, where we don't want the luxury guests to come to a hotel where they see us necessarily cleaning, but now this is all going to be changed and adapted. So we are going to be doing a bit of a performance, a theatrical performance in front of the guests to show that this is actually an environment that has been sanitized and is welcoming to the guests. So I think there'll be a lot more of that in terms of operation. How do we adapt on top of maybe some possible design opportunities that exist out there?
Great. And we actually had a question that was very much like that. So I think you've answered that. And we had a question from one of the attendees that I'm going to use that as a plug. Don't forget, everybody listening, you can ask questions using the Q&A function. I've had a couple coming in, and we want to try to get as many as we can, and we'll answer them as we go through.
And just to quickly jump in there.
Yeah, go for it, Max.
So a team at TrendWatching, and I wish I could take credit for this, set up a website called covidinnovations.com, and it's free, and it's a database that you can filter by sector, and they have some pretty interesting examples of how you can actually, clean and treat furnishings without replacing them all. I know we all probably were laughing about the concept of sticking a UV light down our throat to clear out our lungs, but UV light does make a difference. It's used in hospitals. And I saw the Western Houston Medical Center is already using, I think, a company called Lightstrike with these incredible sci-fi type solution of these robots that can essentially roam from room to room. and hit, you know, the coffee machine and the, you know, the amenities in the restroom with UV light and actually sanitize them. And also before this all happened, I remember seeing a Danish company who have a product called ACT Clean Coat, which is a titanium dioxide sort of spray that you can actually coat surfaces with, and it's been proven to break up pathogens, including, this is their research, so you're going to want to double check this, but including COVID-19. So I think for consumers, especially for all the sustainable focused hotels and resorts, it will be incredibly depressing, and there's going to have to be a lot of replacing infrastructure, but it would be pretty alarming for consumers to see that all just end up in landfill. I think any way you can adapt the infrastructure you already have and actually tell that story, you know, could be a positive as well.
And I think I've kind of noticed there are a handful of brands that have really focused on well-being spaces before COVID, like Delos has the Stay Well room, and Pure Rooms is focused on air purification. It's actually talking to a colleague about a new product brand that works on air filtration, but is actually also filters the air, but also cleans the surface as it's filtering the air. And I expect that we'll see more products like that come to market as add-ons for existing hotel spaces versus trying to build from scratch. On this topic, and then before we'll move on, I have a handful of questions around cleaning supplies for guests, and how do we think about OS&E products like pillows and pillowcases and linens. So I'm going to throw a quick question to the group. Do we expect to see any major changes where guests will be handed cleaning supplies for themselves, or any fundamental changes to OS&E products in hotels? Anybody have some thoughts on that? I'm going to take that as and I think we may have.
We're thinking about, I know this is FF&E, but from a Technogym perspective and fitness equipment, you're going to want to definitely follow the manufacturer's guidelines in terms of the right types of solutions, which we have available for you. I personally will definitely be looking at making sure that I take my own self-responsibility, both pre-arrival onto a cardio piece of equipment or a piece of equipment to wipe that down to ensure it's sort of my own, ability to manage that, and at the same time have a sense of responsibility to the property to which I'm staying at and to the community in terms of cleanliness and keeping things down. Daniel, just wanted to also one more point about the iSpa, International Spa Association, where they actually have on their website, we've developed championed a document or materials, a checklist that's about reopening the spas, the fitness facilities. It was championed through iSpa, but in conjunction with all of the leading spa resort, and also day spa organizations as well. So, yep, thanks.
Thanks, Jay. And I'm going to pause. Sorry, Coletta, go for it.
Yeah, I just wanted to add, I'm reading through the questions as well, and I think I understand the tone. Hotels need to do better at cleaning hotels, and that'll be something that I think they've got to bring forward in the aftermath of this in order to ensure that staff are trained on proper cleaning, using proper cleaning materials, proper cleaning solutions. And there are certainly experts that do that. Someone asked a question if I was familiar with a certain type of hand sanitizer. I'm not an expert in hand sanitizers, but there are people who are. And I think that the hotel brands will need to engage the experts in order to get the right product and the right processes in place. We have some clients who are already engaging to craft messaging in order to let people know what they're doing, what steps and measures they're taking in order to create safe environments. So those things will be a huge trust building measure that has to happen, so that no matter if you're walking in the front door or you're walking in your guest room, guests need to feel comfortable that the space has been properly cleaned and that they also have an option. And I would think that the hotels would initially at least want to provide those sanitation wipes and hand sanitizers, because not every guest is going to walk through the door with that stuff. And those are probably the people that need it most. So hopefully we'll see our brands step up and take care of that.
Yeah, I'll kind of echo kind of what Colette is saying. There's definitely a theme of clean in our questions. And in the last few days, for everybody that is plugged into some of the larger hotel brands, you've seen Marriott, Hilton, and Hyatt all announce versions of partnerships or cleaning protocols, whether it's a relationship with Lysol and their parent company, or kind of a certification for biohazard cleanliness that Hyatt has rolled out or announced. Each one of the brands are really trying to tackle it head on. And I would expect, and I completely agree with Coletta, that small independents and smaller properties are going to have to develop their own protocol, whereas at the end of the day, it comes down to trust and how do they communicate and share a story so that customers trust that they're safe. And that is something that we're going to talk a little bit more about in just a moment. But I want to pause. I think we may have Roger with us. And if so, ask Roger to give a little bit of background on himself and welcome him to the panel.
Thank you so much. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. So I'm sparing everybody from having to watch me and look at me. So thank you. Hi, I'm Roger Bloss. And first and foremost, I apologize. I just got a notification from Cox Cable. They're doing work in my neighborhood. And of course, that work commenced at exactly the same time as this webcast. But nonetheless, I'm Roger Bloss. I am probably one of the happier guys you'll ever talk to because I've been living the American dream in the hospitality field for a little over 4 decades, almost 5. And I've looked at this as a whole lifestyle, not a job, not a vocation. It's just been something that's part of my DNA and culture. As early as the day my dad at 13 years old said, go get a job. So at the age of 13, my early days at Holiday Inn, I became a bus boy, pool boy, or just, hey boy, so I did every job possible, which led me to about a decade of operations. And then I kind of fell into the world of branding, and I actually started with some pretty iconic brands that are still out there today. My first major brand of knowledge would probably be Travelodge. Then I went on to be president of the Knights Inn hotel chain, which was eventually sold to HFS, which is now known Wyndham. So I got a lot of franchising under Wyndham. And during that time frame, I kept hearing all these experts talk about something called the internet. And I wasn't a very educated person, but I understood that this was going to be a game changer. So in 1995, I decided that I could launch my own company. And I did so under a competition of about 100 brands out there. And we created a company called Vantage Hospitality, and our primary brand was America's Best Value Inn. That company and brand grew very, very well through the recession. As we came out of the recession and things got really, really good, I decided that there was a time for change in my world. And today, I now head up a company called Alternative Hospitality, which focuses on hotels, resorts, sports, and entertainment. So I hope all of you get a chance, if you're interested, to take a look at what we're doing on a large scale basis. And I know we'll talk more about it throughout this panel, but the park that we're building in is called Coachella. It's in Desert Hot Springs, California. It's a 186 mixed use cannabis park. I think lots of you will see this as one of the experiential travel experiences that will rival most anything on the planet. So that's a little bit about who I am. I'm thrilled to be here today. I know one of the things that I'm supposed to talk about is what do I see as the next big change coming. And the things that we're working out at the Coachella Park and Coachella Resorts is inclusive, but yet having exclusivity. So I think that's going to be our theme as we move forward, giving people a chance to be inclusive in all the events, but still give them exclusivity throughout our park and resorts. So thank you. I apologize for my internet, but hopefully it'll come back on and everybody will get to see how everything looks. But from there,
thanks,
Roger.
Roger. No, thanks, Roger. And look, we're all living in a new world with being on Zoom nonstop, and we work through it. And I think everybody here knows that, and I'm sure our attendees recognize that too. So thank you, everybody, for your flexibility. So with that, I'm going to open up a kind of perfect segue into my next question is around technology. And this is really for the group, and I'll kick off with you, Jay, and then Max, you weigh in too, and anybody else that wants to contribute. What new technologies and contactless service experiences do we expect to become very prominent in hotels? So let's kind of think about this. Will toilets and sinks in our guest room, will those become automatic, and faucets and handles that have to get cleaned, do those go away? Will front desks disappear? And do we kind of move into a world where the front desk where I'm standing right across from somebody, did that become a standing podium that I can engage with a team member, but I don't actually need to stand right across from somebody and talk to them? Did drawers start opening with a wave like the trunks of SUVs do today? Well, the dreaded TV remote, which we all accept is often one of the dirtiest things in a hotel room. You know, some brands have an app to control the TV now, depending on the platform, but will the TV remote in a hotel room go away once and for all? The list kind of goes on, and it really impacts suppliers and vendors working in the hospitality space, because the old normal of things that were always there may change. And so we really want to just open that up to the group to say, how does contactless technology become part of our new norm in hotels? So Jay, you want to share some thoughts?
Sure. Thanks again, Adam. I think it was Daniel that said, it might be goodbye for the room key forever. And that's, getting me a little bit nervous there, because I have to travel again soon to add to my collection of hotel room keys as I travel weekly. So Technogym, as I mentioned, developing digital solutions. From our standpoint, we've developed a Technogym ecosystem through our My Wellness Cloud platform, which ultimately we think that there's going to be a real good shift to, again, connecting, engaging everywhere, connecting with your guests, keeping them engaged and active in the sense of in the facility, whether it's workout walls and QR codes where they can scan and get workouts of the day right there on their device. I mean, people tend to, I think in the future, are going to be more reliant on their phones in terms of where they get their content from. So like you were talking about, not having to touch the TV remote. So contactless things are going to be absolutely important. I've heard on a great panel the other day, somebody discussing about even entering the fitness facility, about motion activated sensors, so that you're not even touching using a key or touching a door handle to enter the fitness facility. I think things that we can be also on the lookout for in the future are features like embedded wake up inside of cardiovascular equipment. So when you arrive to the machine, it automatically wakes up to alleviate that touch point. I think we could also be looking at equipment availability, meaning you can be in your guest room and seeing how many cardio pieces are present in the fitness facility and are they occupied or not. That's going to give the guest a little bit of peace of mind if they're concerned about how many people are in the space, or if they have their preferred type of equipment that they wanted to train on, that it was accessible to them or not. So I definitely believe in technology is certainly going to be leading the charge.
Yeah, I think a lot of those contactless touch points, Jay, that you brought up, I in my view, will extend beyond the gym spaces in hotels. Sure. And how do those touch printed menus at bars? How do they impact, this sign-in reg card that many people still sign when they arrive at a front desk? Max, what are some takes you've got? Any interesting trends?
Yeah, I mean, yes, absolutely, yes. Is this the direction of travel? It's the building blocks are already there. I mean, it's like the familiarity with biometrics. If you surveyed people and said, "Are you going to be familiar with facial recognition?" Like, I just unlocked my phone, got lots of emails. With 30,000 infrared dots beamed onto my face. So this has been the Trojan horse of biometrics, with thumbprint, voice recognition, facial recognition. Research showed consumers didn't mind biometrics when it helped with their security in airports, etc. The vast majority of people, even in the land of the free and liberty in America, people were receptive to the use of biometrics for security, to the point where you started to see Clear expand their presence into Madison Square Garden, into all kinds of stadiums. If you wanted to get in to see the Knicks play basketball faster than anyone else, you could use biometrics just for convenience sake. When you add the widespread familiarity with biometrics alongside our familiarity with gesture control, you might think of smart speakers as another Trojan horse. All of a sudden in our homes, that was the breakout consumer electronics category of the last 24 months, and it's just completely normalized this hands-free lifestyle. And the third thing, alongside biometrics and gesture control, has just been the general direction of travel for consumers is towards a more hands-free, frictionless experience where, you know, I don't tell Spotify what playlist to make for me. Spotify makes my playlists for me, you know. So when we saw Fly Zoo Hotel from Alibaba, it seemed almost like some people would laugh at it when we presented at conferences. It had things like you know, check in via WeChat through facial recognition. So you just use your smartphone. You would walk out of your room and the elevator would be there because they'd know you'd left your room. Go look at Fly Zoo Hotel. I think that's a very clear indication of the direction that many of the other hotels will have to head.
Thanks, Max. And I think there's some interesting tidbits from a lot of the very forward-looking entrepreneurial brands that are trying to push the envelope. Coletta, just from an architectural building and design perspective, is there anything you want to add that you're seeing in actual projects?
Well, we are seeing a lot of voice-activated things like the Siri, but for Google, I forget her name because I don't use that. But so to control radio, to control alarm clocks, so that's coming. But one thing I want to say on a bigger scale is those bigger impact things really come down to budget on a lot of projects. So I think that there's going to have to be an appetite for it before we see any real big changes come in the built environment.
Yeah, so finding the right, how do you value engineer out? I have a project I worked on where, you know, to Max's point, there was a strong desire to have Volara or another, you know, Alexa layer on top of Alexa for consistency and security, but that's a VE item, and you know that can get VE'd, but the bed can. And what point of time does that not become an option anymore? It's a requirement. In the same way, a television is a requirement, but it wasn't always years and years ago. I'm going to change gears. A couple more questions.
You know, one of the things that we were looking at, I wanted to jump in and just add this.
Please.
One of the things that we were looking at that we see that's going to change quite a bit too are self-service machines. You see machines today that can dispense most anything, including, you know, fresh salads and things. So we see a lot of, you know, self-serve, one item, one portion type of vending throughout the facilities as well. We think that, you know, it's kind of old school, but yet I think as people are going to be really comfortable with it. As you mentioned, we have artificial intelligence, we have facial recognition, so they don't have to touch these machines, and they'll see that they can disperse these on a much wider scale without a lot of labor, and people would be very comfortable with that throughout. And then it also gives you that 24-hour option within your facility. So I think you're going to see a lot of that coming back and expanding.
Yeah, and I think, Roger, maybe that is a great lead into our next question. And I'd love you to weigh in here, as well as Daniel and the team. But we want to get a sense of, particularly for those on the panel or the call today that work more in the luxury or very premium international hotel space, what changes do we think are going to come to life for that international 4 or 5 star caliber hotel? And what new products are going to have to come to market, and how do these brands adapt? So some really simple examples. Will people still accept a valet going into their car to park their car? Most international scale hotels have the typical 3-meal buffet. Will buffets still exist, and how will those change? We have a lot of questions in the Q&A really around food service, and how do we expect kind of the lobby bar environment to vary in the future? Do we expect design to enable temperature checks or more stepping stones as customers need to walk into the hotel for the first moment? Or is that a short-term thing? So love, Daniel, you to weigh in, as you, I know, work on a lot of very premium projects, Roger too, and then anybody that has some thoughts on this.
Yeah, sure. Thank you, Adam. So as most people in the hospitality industry, we are working on a phased approach to this, this crisis. So if we are planning to reopen our hotel, and I really say if, in June or July, obviously the level of will be different than when we think about a year or 2 from now, when people hopefully have immunity or there's a vaccine available. So if we're thinking about, there will be adaptation, maybe there's no more buffet. We're talking about self-parking for cars. We are thinking of maybe not opening all the spas and fitness facilities at the beginning. Maybe the saunas and the steam rooms are not something that is coming in phase 1. So as we gain the trust of the guests, and the guests are coming back more and more, and the way people live in their daily life outside of the hotel will also impact how we adapt our operations to meet their needs, right? So I took a few notes as well. So I think that a lot of the conversation about the design of post-COVID can also be managed on an operation point of view. So I think there's a lot of things that we can do operation-wise, whether we talk about yield, managing our facilities, managing occupancies in saunas and steam rooms, which we don't really do at this point because we were never faced with a virus that is communicated this way. But I think that there is way, without changing too much the design of the way we design wellness, could be adapted by the way we practice our operations. So one of the thing I hear quite often is when we talk about social distancing and isolation, to think of a future where the wellness facilities will be almost exclusively focused on isolating guests may, in my opinion, not be necessarily the way to go. There's a lot more research in the last few years from science that have proven that loneliness is the equivalent of smoking 15 cigarettes per day. So are we going to start building larger facilities, which nobody has the money to do, that are all somewhat divided into small areas where people are almost alone participating in a wellness program that normally they would do as a group? And what is the impact of this isolation and loneliness to the overall health of the community? So more concerned about this with this virus at this point.
Yeah, Roger, maybe you weigh in too, because I think there's a piece of the community aspect that's really critical here. Hotels are community spaces where locals and guests from far away come together. And how do we balance that when everyone's trying to keep away from each other?
You know, that's going to be the biggest thing. And I think we have a distinct advantage what we're doing out at Coachella, because as I mentioned earlier, we're looking at having everyone inclusive in what we do, but yet still have exclusivity. So we're looking at a lot of different things, indoor, outdoor spaces. Again, remember the environment that you live in or that you're building in. We're fortunate. We have 360 days of sunshine where we're building. So we see a lot more indoor, outdoor spaces. We see things that are going to make people inclusive by changing the pool design and the pool bars, things of that nature. So instead of having a traditional pool, we'll look to a lazy river for natural separation. We'll look for smaller food and beverage stations throughout the public space. So we see that just by creating our design, that will automatically give the spacing that we need, but people won't feel that way. Like I said, by making the lazy river, all of a sudden you opened up all kinds of new spaces and new opportunities. Yeah. So we think we're going to see a lot of that. We think we're going to see, like I said, more self-service. And you saw that coming with labor costs rising. You know, there are self-service beer machines, there are self-service wine machines, things of that nature. So I think people are going to be very comfortable in those environments. And then when, you know, it's really up to us as the hoteliers. You know, I don't know that there's one product that I can say that will do it. If you look back at our business plan, then we started this almost 2 years ago, I have a background of being a germaphobe. So everything we designed in this hotel before the viruses or before this discussion was about how do we generate that environment that people walk in and go, wow, this is the cleanest place I've ever been. So we're looking at the materials we use. And again, to be authentic, we're using materials like hemp that have antimicrobial effects and things like that. So more sustainability you'll see come into play. Again, we're very fortunate in our location. We have, you know, healing water that will be running. So again, we can literally drink water out of our wells. So for us, it's about sustainability, giving people the space to move around, but yet giving them conveniences. And I think the other thing that people are going to want to see is they're going to, you know, in the old days, we used to try to hide when we cleaned. We'd come, you know, do it on the midnight shift or something. I think you're going to see now that people are going to be much more visible and showing people in front of them that things are ongoing and constantly being upkept.
Yeah.
So that's the kind of thing that we see coming.
Yeah, I agree with you on that, Roger. And that kind of goes right into one of our questions, which Dan, Jay and Max and others, you guys jump in around sanitation and what prolific changes do we see in safety, security, and sanitation. We've definitely had some questions. Some of the different hotel groups have launched their own version of medical advisory boards, cleanliness advisory boards. What does the group think of, you know, where are we going to move as it comes to cleanliness and sanitation in hotels, and this idea of glass houses? Are things going to be front and center, or are they going to be more hidden? One of the things Max and we talked about was kind of the Maslow's hierarchy model of forget all the nice touch points. You know, people want to feel safe and secure, and that comes first, and their safety is at the top of that list. So I'd love the group to kind of weigh in a little bit on this idea of what are going to be the sanitation and cleanliness changes that go well beyond a vaccine for this virus that come and impact the industry. Max, you are on mute.
Sure. Yeah, well, I'm going to go a slightly different direction with that and say beyond just the physical infrastructure and the surfaces and the air quality and the spacing of the guests, something that's kind of been hinted at here, I think is going to be incredibly important, is the health and safety of the staff and the employees as well. So this has been a longer term trend. We bring it up any chance we get at Trend Watching, the shift away from black box brands, where you basically, like Roger mentioned, you did things in secret, you painted this different version of who you were on the outside, and then you hoped people paid you money for that. Now they can see absolutely everything you do. And if you're Amazon and you're not looking after your warehouse workers, they're going to go on strike, and the whole world is going to find out about that. And you see the sort of negative sides of glassbox brands all the time. So my challenge to the designers and the call is to think about, how do you make it very visible beyond actually looking after employees? Once you're kind of guaranteeing the health and safety of employees, how are you making that, putting that more on display? What does that look like? And how do you show that they're sort of happy and healthy as can be? So even alongside the building and what Coletta mentioned at the very beginning, the actual people running the show.
The employee, the team member areas, the team member programs, the workplace wellness programs. Like, and I think that's a whole separate grounded by design conversation, and maybe that'll be one we explore more next. But I completely agree. You can't deliver on hospitality without the people that do it, and those are the team members. Jay, was there something you were going to add before that you wanted to jump in on?
Well, I was going to touch base on the luxury side of things. Okay, great. So one of the things that I was thinking about is this, like, on one hand, we have personalization and experience. We know those are some driving factors for the luxury premium traveler. And on the other hand, we have the operator, who is absolutely looking for attraction and retention, right? Especially in the bounce back, where occupancy levels will be low, or rates will be probably a little bit competitive, and people are still going to be yearning to travel and get out there. So I think experiences are going to be super high on the list in terms of once the leisure traveler comes back out there. A lot of these resorts or hotels have group X spaces. And I think, when you're thinking about, hotels that are operating with reduced staff, we're maybe not going to see the ability to manage that. So curating sort of pods of privatized workouts, delivering premium experiences that can be monetized, even if we're talking about various levels of occupancy, lower percentage of occupancy, turning the guest rooms, specific guest rooms, into massage suite, a wellness suite, or workout space. Technogym has just forged partnerships with Ironman. We've got partnership now also with the PGA Tour Player Performance Center. So thinking about curating, golf is actually, I just saw in California, is about to start to reopen. Matter of fact, one of my team members said, "Hey, the links are opening soon," and I've been asking to take, get on the course. So that's how I knew California was coming back with golf. So can you curate a PGA golf performance sort of emulation of a training facility inside the resort? And then also live streaming and on-demand experiences. So there's a lot of movement towards having these the technology through live streaming on demand, which brings you to an external community. While we're still sort of isolating a bit and sort of socially or physically distancing, you can be part of a community inside of the experience on the platform. So I think curating and creating little pods of a live streaming area, like which Technogym has, that Technogym Bike and a Technogym Live platform. So thank you, Adam.
Thanks, Jay.
Yeah, Adam, I think there's also going to be some government standards set. I expect the American Hotel and Lodging Association to come out with certifications along with the AHOA organization. So I see certifications coming out. I think they'll be done state by state, not a lot unlike we already have now, ABC and the restaurant grades and things like that. So I think you're going to see some states and some government intervention to get certification, not only for your guests, but for your employees as well.
Yeah, and Roger, I'll build on that. One of the questions that we're seeing a version of repeated is, in order to provide wellness in a hotel, the hotel has to prove that it's clean and safe. Is there a way to actually do that? And is there a way to prove it's clean and safe, or does that really become a marketing challenge? And does that start with another question ties to reaching out to locals and thinking about staycations? So anybody have thoughts on that? Like, how do we start to engage with customers, whether they're local or from afar, prove that hotels and hospitality environments are safe places to be?
I'll jump in on that real quick.
Go
One of
for
the
it.
things we're doing out at Coachella is utilizing technology. What we're doing, and you're seeing it from American Airlines and other companies already, but what we're doing is we're reaching out to our customers. When are they ready to start buying? When are they ready to start doing things? So we think by utilizing technology, we can start to look at what the customer's demands are going to be and the timelines that buyers are going to be looking at. That's going to allow us to maximize when we have to staff, when we have to gear up, when we have to slow down and things. So I think you're going to see that type of technology come out and kind of dictate to us what the buyers' habits are looking like and what their motives are. So I see that as a big advantage for us during this downtime as we come out of it.
I agree. I think technology to be both transparent to guests so that they know what to expect, and then to help prove to whatever extent businesses can that they're safe and secure. One or two more last questions before we wrap up. We've got about 5 minutes to go. And I'm going to ask the group to kind of each share and weigh in their thoughts on the way kind of how we began. But really, what do we think that wellness will look like into buildings into the future? Will we see a resurgence of exterior corridor hotels where there's more connectivity between the outdoors and the indoors? Will biophilic components take a huge rise? Will every guest room have an opening window and that becomes a must-have, not an option? There were a lot of trends pre-virus around movement of getting green elements into hotels. Will HVAC systems all be required to change, and will there be much more stringent requirements around filtration? Just any thoughts there? Coletta, you jump in first, and then any other ideas?
Gosh, I hope so. First of all, I believe that pre-virus initiatives like biophilic design will continue to be important, and perhaps even catch the attention of those who previously didn't have the budget for those types of luxuries as they were previously described. So any things that help us clean the indoor air environment will be very important moving forward. What we're talking about is really helping people have a sense of well-being when they are inside spaces that we build, and biophilic design is a huge advocate of doing that. It does make sense that indoor, outdoor type spaces will become attractive options. There's already, we're hearing that there's a little bit of traction there. Giving guests the experience that they have in exterior corridors, that they're not confined to these small spaces, is going to just logically be attractive to some travelers. I also really hope that the brands will stiffen requirements for HVAC systems, and particularly the required upkeep for those systems through the years. And on a larger scale, what I really hope for is that we can be proponents for human and environmental resiliency. This is the perfect time to push for this agenda. It's really the most basic human right to have healthy air. And so hopefully, like Roger was saying, there will be some push on legislation for these types of initiatives.
Thanks, Coletta. Anybody else in the group before we wrap up have thoughts on this topic? Kind of how do we see kind of future of well spaces and buildings coming to life?
I'll jump in on ours. We're planning on balconies on all of our guest rooms so that people have that fresh air exposure. And because we have amphitheater and sports and different entities at our park, we will be adding, now that this has happened at our amphitheater, we will be having skyboxes. So again, people can be inclusive, yet still have exclusivity. Our hotel, because of this, will be adding skyboxes. So if you want to avoid, certain personal experiences or people in clusters, You can watch these events from your guest room or the skyboxes that we built at the amphitheater. So I think you're also going to see, yes, in the HVAC, you're going to see ozone emitters. We think we'll have live walls for fresh oxygen in our hotels. We'll have Himalayan salts and walls. We'll have healthy lighting. And again, I told you we're huge on sustainability. So everything we do focuses on that. And I think that's what's going to create these design and features that people will gravitate, not only during Corona, but after Corona. And again, back to the environment that we talk so much about, I think indoor, outdoor spaces and weather and climates that are conducive, you're going to see that come back very, very strong. And I know a lot of people are going to say, yeah, balconies cost more, or if you add more stairwells, they cost more. I think one of the other things you're going to see are more elevators. They may be smaller boxes, but I think you'll see more elevators as well. And I realize people are going to listen to this and say there's a cost associated with that. But if you look back over history, we're all willing to pay a few dollars more to enhance our experience and protect our health.
Good point, Roger. So with that, guys, I want to take a moment, just thank the group. I really want to thank our panelists for their time, passion, and perspective. For everybody that asked questions, we're going to do our best to answer those over email after the event if I didn't get to your question during the conversation today. But also all of the folks on the panel are on LinkedIn and welcome continued or individual conversations, so please reach out. We also want to once again thank our media partners, Hotel Business and Inspire Design, and our session sponsor, Decalab, a full-scale bathroom and case goods company. Thank you all for helping us bring this to life. Definitely join us for our next Grounded by Design event, which will be in June. We'll specifically focus on that event on the evolution of high-density spaces for lodging, residential, and co-working. And if you're a supplier or buyer and you're interested in finding ways to connect and do business virtually in the meantime, as we're in this pandemic mode, check out Next Events Virtual, which you'll hear more about in our follow-up email, and use that as a platform to connect. So with that, I'm wishing everyone lots of wellness, lots of smiles, lots of positivity. Stay smiling, stay safe, stay healthy, and thank you, everybody.